Hey there, welcome back. For Lesson 2, we're going to start by looking at the Modify tab. Now if you click on the tab up at the top, you can see there's a bunch of different options. There's Geometry, Modify, View, Measure, Create. Now we're not going to go over everything that you can do under this tab, but I want to give you a general idea so you start understanding the different categories. To get started on this, let's just build a simple wall. So click on the Architecture tab, and we'll select just a generic wall. Same one you've seen before, 8 inches long. Now you'll notice that the Modify tab pops up right away. That means that anytime you click to add something, floor, ceiling, wall, whatever, you're going to be able to use the Modify functions to impact it. Now to get started, to actually put it on the screen, we're going to click on the Line option under the Draw category. This option lets you draw all sorts of different shapes. You can do straight lines, you can do circles, arcs and angles, or pick lines. Pick lines are great if you're trying to draw floor plans or outlines. We'll cover that more later, but for right now we're just going to do lines. But for now, we're just going to draw a plain wall. So we're going to lay it out here. Now, if we want to rotate it, there's something special Revit makes you do. For those of you coming from AutoCAD or other Autodesk features, you're probably looking for a command bar. Revit doesn't really have any sort of command bar. Instead, what it has are your objects and a general idea of where it is and what you want to do to it. It's going to facilitate that through a two-step process. So if we go ahead and click on this object, you can see that it's highlighted now. The information about it is over in the Properties window. And now up in the toolbar, that's where we can choose to make alterations to the object. We can do all sorts of stuff. We can rotate it, mirror it. In this case, what I'm going to do is copy it. When we select copy, it's going to initiate that two-step process. What that means is that when we hit copy, it's going to ask us where we want to copy from, and then where we want to copy to. So as you can see, when we click the midpoint, when we then move the mouse, it shows a little ghost outline of what the copied wall would look like, showing dimensions. And if we want, we can actually manually type in the dimensions, and it will set the wall at that distance. So in this case, what it did is move the wall 30 feet from the interior. This option is totally customizable. If you want to set it from the faces or from the outside, you can go into Revit and do that. But we'll get into that in the intermediate course. Now let's say we want to rotate the wall instead. To do that, we'll go up to the Modify tab and click on Rotate. Now, in this case, we're not going to click on the wall first. You don't have to do that in order to perform the functions. If you go up and you click on Rotate, the computer will actually ask what you want to rotate. So again, we'll go Modify, Rotate, and we'll click on the wall we want to rotate. In this case, I'll click on the left wall and hit Enter. Okay, so note that as we start to move our mouse, it's opting to rotate it from the center. Now, if we don't want to do that, we can actually choose where we want the point of rotation to be. So let's put it at the end for right now. So again, this is that two-step operation in practice. So I want to rotate it from the end, and I want to rotate it 45 degrees. So that's just one way of doing it, though. Again, we are also totally able to click on the object, go up to Modify and Rotate, and then the two-step process, it will start from the midpoint, and we will rotate it back 45 degrees so that it's back in its original alignment, if not its original position. So I'll just rotate it one more time so you can get an idea, but feel free to play around with it. That's basically, though, how Rotate works. Next, I want to show you how you can move an object. We'll just click on the object, click Move, and then we're selecting from where we want to move it to where we want to move it. We can also add trim or extensions. So still under the Modify tab, we'll highlight that, and a good rule of thumb is that whenever you see these little icons in the tabs, if you hover the mouse over it, it will actually show a short video giving a demonstration of what the process is. So this is something that AutoCAD does not do, and it's an extremely nice tool for Revit. So in this case, we're going to highlight over the trim, or the TR is the keyboard command, and we are going to click on it, and now we're going to do the same as before, from and to. So we want to go from the left wall to the right one with our trim, or in this case, we're actually extending it. When we click on the right wall, that dashed blue line becomes a solid line joining the two together, which is really useful if you're trying to connect two walls. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is undo it. You can do that either by hitting Ctrl-Z, or you can go up to the topmost toolbar and click the undo button. Alright, now what I'm going to do is move the wall, but you don't have to use the move command. You can actually just click and drag, and you can move your wall anywhere on the screen. Now we're going to try and trim this back. The rule of thumb that I always try to teach my students is click on what you want to keep. Remember that. So we can go up and we can select the trim command, or if you want, you can do the keyboard shortcut, type in TR and it'll show up next to your cursor, and then we're going to click on those top two pieces that form a sort of V. Note that the bottom parts were deleted, because what I clicked on is what I kept. If we undo and repeat the process on the bottom, then it gets rid of the top. So one more time, just remember, click on what you want to keep. Alright, so next we're going to do scaling. Now these are objects you can scale, but just be aware that there are some that cannot scale. So for instance, in Revit, you cannot scale doors. They just don't want you to do that. You can scale walls, though, which is what we're going to do here. So doors are just considered fixed entities. Walls, though, can be stretched out or they can be shrunk down and they will scale. So just be aware that not every option is going to appear with every object. So we have array, we have split elements, we have split with gap. So these are all really useful things to be able to do, but also useful to know the limitations of what Revit will let you do. So what we're going to do now is we are going to rotate this wall so that it's perpendicular with the other, and then we are going to click on the vertical wall now and copy it over. So now if I want to trim it out, put a hole in the middle wall section, there's a bunch of ways we can do that. So if we want to do that, we can either split the element or split it with gap. I'm going to split the element this time. That's the keyboard shortcut SL. And when we click in there, you'll notice a little line appears. That's the point from which your element will split, and you can move it over to create a gap. So this might seem a little bit complicated or tedious, especially if you're coming from AutoCAD, but remember that we're dealing with 3D elements here. Even though what we're looking at right now is 2D, it's saving all that information for a 3D rendering. So those are the basics of the Modify tab. Go ahead and play around with it, start to get familiar with what you can do and can't do. I'd recommend sticking with walls for right now, because they're fairly simple, and they let you get a good handle on the basics of Revit before moving on to more complicated features. So just watch the video over again, play around while you're watching the video, and just start to get a feel for everything that Revit has to offer. So watch it as many times as you need to get comfortable with everything, and then I will see you in the next video.